I get it, getting that blurry background when you shoot at 2.8 or even f1.4 is delicious. But 9 out of 10 times, your video does not need to be that shallow. And I'm already going to spoil the video by saying this, but you want to be intentional. What will end up happening is that 1, it's just not going to look as good as you want it to look, and 2, you're going to be missing focus a lot. Instead, depending on what kind of video you're shooting, I want you to start shooting at f4 or f5.6 because you still get a shallow depth of field, you still get that blurry background, but you also get a way crispier image. Besides, you want to ask yourself why you're shooting at a certain aperture, because it's more than the shallow depth of field. It's also about the feeling and the experience that you're trying to create and to convey with that specific clip. A very simple example that we can look at would be a vlog. So let's take a travel vlog, for example. Chances are, if you're shooting a travel vlog, you do not just want to show yourself, but you also want to show the surroundings. You want to show where you're at. So if you're shooting wide open at f1.4, what's going to happen is only your beautiful face will be shown because everything else will be super blurry. And that is not what we want, because we want to show that we're in a certain city. We want to show that we're in a certain country. Okay, I hate to stop the video here, but did you just catch that? Is this woman's phone okay? We want to show that we're in a certain city. We want to show that we're in a certain country because that is the storyline, and you want to tell that story and not just show your face. Another mistake that I see a lot of creators make, and this is one that I am guilty of myself, okay, is shooting everything at 100 or 120 frames per second. When I just started making videos 5 years ago, I started making vlogs. This was something I used to do all the time because I thought this was the hottest shit. Everyone was doing it. Nothing is better than that nice, smooth, buttery B-roll, right? Well, actually, there is a lot better than that. Try 60 frames per second or just 24 frames per second. Wild, right? Now, I rarely shoot in 100 frames per second. I shoot everything at either 50 or 25 because what you want to do when it comes to creating B-roll sequences is you also want to play around with the frames per second that you're shooting in. You don't need everything to be buttery smooth, super slow-mo. Sometimes you want to make things feel a bit more real, handheld, or slow down, but not too slow down, which is where the 50 or 60 frames per second comes in. In addition to that, if you're shooting at 120 or 100 frames per second, this means that your shutter speed needs to be cranked up all the way to 1/200th or 1/250th, depending on the frames per second you're shooting in, which means that a lot less light can come in. And this is not ideal at all if you're shooting at night or in darker surroundings. And I know that right now you're about to open up that aperture, but nah, we just talked about that. We're not doing that. When it comes to making those kind of B-roll sequences, or if you're making a recap, we usually just grab a song from the internet, we put it on the timeline, and we start marking to the beat, which is great. But then I'll show you. Here's a video that I created for my friends who are in a band called Call It Off. Here's version 1. And here's version 2. All right, I want to know which version you thought was more interesting to watch. Go to the comment section, let me know, and I'll wait right here. Okay, I'm about to spoil the answer now because otherwise retention and stuff. The right answer, because there actually is a right answer, the right answer is version 2, and I'll explain why. In version 1, every cut was made at the exact same time. Every clip is the exact same length. And not only does this feel repetitive, but this also feels very predictable. And when you're making a recap video or a B-roll sequence, as soon as the viewer can predict where it's gonna cut, you gotta change things up. You can absolutely use some of the same cuts. That's what I did in version 2 as well. Not every cut needs to be different. However, as soon as you're gonna play around with this, you'll see how much your video will improve and how much better it will feel and how much more exciting it is to watch. That being said, because I feel like this is a little bit tricky, with those cuts, you still want to be intentional. You want to be mindful. You want to know why you're making a certain cut. Don't just cut things up for the sake of cutting things up. And this is, my beautiful friend, where intuition comes in, which is something that I unfortunately cannot teach. Now, just like we need to level and balance the shots that we use, we also have to level our audio. Now, sound leveling is something that is often forgotten, but it is so important. When you're vlogging, for example, you might have clips that sound lower in volume and others that that sound louder in volume. And not only does it sound messy when you're watching a video that isn't leveled, it is also just really distracting. Dialogue, which are these talking bits, should be ideally between -6 and -12, which you can see in the meter right here in whatever video editing program you use, honestly. As we play through the video, we can monitor and see if it's actually between -6 and -12. To easily balance out all of these dialogue clips on the timeline, in Premiere Pro, we can select all of them and then click on Auto Match in the Essential Sound panel. Now, this will match all of the audio clips to the broadcasting standard. Obviously, we're not broadcasting our vlogs, we're putting it online, but this is a great starting point and a great way to level everything out. Then we can just play through it and we can either increase or decrease the volume a little bit so it stays in between -6 and -12. There is so much more when it comes to editing audio and sound design in videos, and sadly, this is a very unappreciated or underappreciated aspect of editing. So if you want to learn more about this, if you want a full tutorial on this, then go to the comment section and let me know so I can make that video for you. We all know, hopefully, that video editing does not end with cutting up a video and adding some effects. There is a big part of editing that is not necessarily overlooked, but definitely not studied well enough. And no, I'm not talking about audio, which is another one. I'm talking about color correcting and color grading. This is a very interactive video because my first question would be, do you know the difference between color correction and color grading? Because these two, although they're often used interchangeably, they are actually two separate steps, whereas one is the vital, the mandatory, I cannot come up with a word right now, you gotta do color correction, you do not need to do color grading. Now, color grading is more of a stylistic choice, a personal choice, a creative decision, so there's not too much to say about that because it is subjective, but there are definitely right and wrongs when it comes to color grading, so let's touch on that. Even though color grading is a creative process and a subjective choice, we cannot deny the fact that some people just slap a lot on it, keep it at 100% and call it a day, and that is exactly what I don't need you to do. This is not how you color grade, and this is definitely not how you evoke an emotion or how you're enhancing the story using color. Again, said this before in this video, you want to be intentional about this. Let's take that video that I showed you a bit earlier as an example again, because the colors, they look a little bit faded and it's not popping as much as you might think it should. But this is actually all very intentional because it is a pop punk band. When I was editing and color grading this video, I wanted this to look a little bit distressed and a little bit washed out to really fit the mood, because if I turned this video into a super clean, buttery smooth video, it would have given the viewer a very different experience. When I mentioned LUTs before, and by the way, if you don't know what LUTs are, they are basically video filters for your video. I didn't mean that in a bad way. I love LUTs. I use them all the time. I even sell my own pack that don't destroy your skin tones, so there will be a link in the description if you want to check that out. That was a very nice plug, wasn't it? But you gotta know how and when to use them effectively, and to do that, you can watch this video right here. And of course, please don't forget to subscribe and maybe check out my LUT pack if you want to make great videos that look great and you want to support me. Thank you.